If the white right, if the best we have to offer is the sad, dying gasp of white culture, people are going with liberal hegemony.
Proud to be an American. It was a total slap in the face to the dumbasses.
That kind of football is ours. They call it American football.
It's like watching your kids argue over a toy. And this week, the toy is the Super Bowl. Who was more virtuous? Nobody was.
The fallout from Bad Bunny's halftime show has now spun into 3 frenzied days of debate, which frankly is a bit over the top. But there's a reason for that. The Super Bowl is an iconic national event. People care about the image of America that the Super Bowl projects to the world. Megyn Kelly represented one side of the argument in typically scintillating style, which is why it's been viewed 35 million times across all our Piers Morgan Uncensored platforms so far.
We have to keep the Super Bowl, which is a quintessential American event. Football, that kind of football, is ours. They call it American football. And the halftime show and everything around it needs to stay quintessentially American. Not Spanish, not Muslim, not anything other than good old-fashioned American apple pie. There should be a meatloaf, maybe some fried chicken, and an English-speaking performer. That's what the Super Bowl should be.
Well, apple pie is in fact British and meatloaf is German. But the more interesting question that many have been asking in response to this is what is meant by ours? Based on the feedback to my own cheerful review of the show, I'm well aware that it doesn't include me. But Bad Bunny is from Puerto Rico. He's an American, and tens of millions of Americans speak Spanish.
Who gives a damn that we have 40 million Spanish speakers in the United States? We have 310 million who don't speak a lick of Spanish. This is supposed to be a unifying event for the country, not for the Latinos, not for one small group, but for the country.
So what makes it less American? Is it just the language? I mean, rodeos are quintessentially American, but they're also Spanish and have a whole Spanish vocabulary. Lasso, Mustang, Bronco, and so on. Budweiser, the all-American beer, well, that's a German word. Auld Lang Syne, a New Year's classic, well, that's Scottish. And let's not forget that the whole country is named after an Italian explorer, Amerigo Vespucci. And I don't remember the same outrage over Kendrick Lamar's show last year, even though many English speakers, myself included, could barely understand a word of that either. Well, I'll be debating all this with my panel in a moment, but first, some members of Congress have been given the chance this week to view the unredacted Epstein Files. One of them is South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace, who joins me now. Congresswoman, thank you very much indeed for coming back on Uncensored.
Thank you for having me, Piers.
You've had a chance that very few have had, which is to get into some of these redactions that were being made. Obviously, there are millions of documents. How much have you been able to see that you think is significant? And what is being hidden by these redactions, do you think?
Very little. In fact, the most important documents in my mind are the documents that are related to potential co-conspirators and individuals who have already been investigated and have seen no jail time. And one of those particular documents is an investigation document that the DOJ put on its website at one point and then took it down. Well, I went to the DOJ. That was the first document that I tried to pull up yesterday. And wouldn't you know, it is completely redacted. I still can't take a look at it. And I was told by the DOJ that the reason for that is that this is the way that the data came to the DOJ from the Southern District of New York. And there were also memos, internal memos by the DOJ that were attached to emails that I wanted to review as I'm sitting inside the DOJ. And guess what, Piers? Those attachments, those internal memos discussing co-conspirators that were investigated were unavailable to me. And so when you see this, you just realize this is one of the greatest cover-ups in American history. And I'm talking about multiple DOJs, multiple FBIs, multiple administrations, and all these girls want is justice and the truth. And we have to shame these predators out of existence, out of civil society, if they're not going to see jail time. And that's what this process is about. I'm going back again in a few hours to try to look up more documents, particularly related to the co-conspirators.
Is it likely that members of the House or the Senate perhaps are going to start naming some of these redacted names using the cover of Congress?
I'm one of the experts on the speech and debate clause. I have named names on the House floor, but also I will be naming names in a memo that I am currently drafting to the U.S. House of Representatives Oversight Committee. These are not necessarily people that I believe are predators, but these are people who I believe may be witnesses, may have information, because if the DOJ and the FBI aren't going to do their job, it is up to brave and courageous members of Congress to do it for them. And I believe that that passion and that courage and that bravery exists on the House Oversight Committee. And you will, the list of names that I have just from being in the DOJ for 2 hours yesterday is longer than I could have imagined. And so I'm going back again in a few hours. I'm going to have a longer list of names. The other thing I want to mention, Piers, one of my biggest frustrations yesterday is that the Department of Justice only has 4 computers, 4 chairs for ostensibly 535 members of Congress who may want to look at the documents. You have a tiny room the size of a closet with 4 chairs in it. And we have to take turns and make appointments. And, you know, this thing is going to be long and drawn out. It could take me months to get through documents at this rate that I believe are going to be critical as this information is hidden from members of Congress. And that's wrong.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And what about the fact that, all right, we saw 3 million documents released a week ago, but actually there apparently are more than 3 million more documents which they have no intention of making public. How does that sit with the administration's claim to be desirous of being fully transparent?
Well, I can tell you there are folks on both sides of the aisle that are going to go after this. And once you put that bone in my mouth, I'm like a dog. I'm going to keep going at it. I will not let go. And that's what we have to do here. We can't allow women to continue to be second-class citizens. I don't care if you have a tiara or a crown. You shouldn't get away with this. If you are rich and powerful or a billionaire, and if you did something to these women, you go to jail. And I want to give hope to the Epstein victims because I've lost all faith in the justice system. And if they're not going to go to jail, then we shame them out of existence, out of civil society. They lose their board seats, they lose jobs, they lose business deals, and we don't celebrate this kind of thing. Going to a pedophile island years after someone is a convicted pedophile to have lunch with your kids or whomever is wrong. And I just don't understand where the moral clarity is lost on members of Congress who are afraid to touch this subject. As a survivor, I'm seeing this in real time. In my own case, the judge in my cases revealed the names of the victims. It wouldn't let them continue as Jane Does, just like the Epstein victims, whose names and identifying information were revealed to the public after they were promised it would be redacted. After by law, they were told it had to be redacted. You know, Virginia Guthrie Roberts, minor children. I mean, those names were revealed in those documents. And so it's almost like they want to protect the predators and continue the abuse and trauma of the victims. And that's wrong. And I'm going to stand up with them and for them and beside them until my last breath and until every man and woman who did something to these girls is held accountable.
Well, good for you. I mean, I want to put some names to you that have been in the news connected to Epstein Files this week. The US Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, I think you were just alluding to this, has now confirmed in his hearing that he visited Epstein's Island in 2012. Now, that's contradicting his previous claims that he cut all ties with him years earlier and was, of course, several years after Epstein's conviction for being a paedophile. And he said, I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies. We had lunch on the island. That is true for an hour. Now, that doesn't mean he did anything wrong, but it does mean he was not telling the truth originally about the timeline of his relationship with Epstein. And it does beg the question, why are you taking your family to an island owned by a convicted pedophile?
I would never do that as a mom. I want to protect children with every fiber of my being and would do that. But you would be shocked, Piers, that some of the names that I have seen that came across the DOJ in emails that the DOJ is protecting. And we're talking about people on both sides of the aisle. We're talking about famous people, rich people, people in power, prime ministers, former presidents, et cetera, media personalities. that are named in these files. And that's why I say this is going to go down as the greatest cover-up, one of the greatest cover-ups in American history. And I don't believe the girls are actually going to see justice, which is why it's going to be incumbent upon people like Democrat Ro Khanna, Republican Thomas Massey. I'm a Republican myself who's willing to name some of those names in our committee work, on the floor of the House, whatever it takes, because this kind of thing cannot continue to go on. I want to give the next girl hope that when she comes forward, she won't be shamed. Her life won't be smeared in the Daily Mail or whatever the next press, is going to do. What they do to female victims and to children is disgusting, because they're protecting their rich and powerful friends. But you'd be surprised, shocked even at some of the names in the files.
Today's show is sponsored by Oxford Natural, makers of the Optimum Day and Optimum Night all-natural supplements. Thousands of Brits and Americans are already taking them with incredible results. Optimum Day boosts your energy and supports weight loss throughout the day. Optimum Night helps you relax and get deep, refreshing sleep. They have countless success stories, including from some very familiar faces. England legend Michael Owen, who lost 40 pounds, AFTV's Robbie, who lost more than 100 pounds. To watch their full stories and many more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit oxfordnatural.com/Piers. And here's the best part. Use the code Piers and get 70% off your first order. Yes, 70% off with the code Piers.
This week, Ghislaine Maxwell pled the fifth, but her lawyer, David Marcus, said if this committee and the American public truly want to hear the unfiltered truth about what happened, there's a straightforward path, as Maxwell's prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. I mean, what does it come to when a woman serving a 20-year sentence for being part of this disgusting sexual predatory, trafficking, revolting situation, suddenly decides to try and blackmail the President of the United States and force clemency for telling the truth?
Right, and spitting in the face of every woman and girl that she abused and victimized. I mean, she is a pedophile. And you read these testimony, I can tell you some of the harshest and hardest to read documents are the grand jury documents in the Southern District of New York, and talking about a 13 or 14-year-old girl sitting in Jeffrey Epstein's lap and Ghislaine Maxwell's involvement in that. And the girl she allegedly had sexual intercourse with or sexual relations with, they looked for the poorest, the most abused, the runaways, the ones in juvenile, the girls that needed and were desperate to get out of a horrible situation at home or get out of their poor communities. They preyed upon these girls, and they were young and they were vulnerable. And to take pride in that because she wants to get released out of jail, rather than having the conviction or the moral clarity or the remorse. There's no remorse in Ghislaine Maxwell. She has no remorse for what she's done, or she would name names. And I guess if she names names, maybe she would be offed like Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know. But, it's worth it to these women to ensure that this doesn't continue. And we've seen foreign nations do more against potential predators like former Prince Andrew than we've done in the United States. And we're the leader of the free world.
Yeah, I mean, that is the bizarre thing here, where you see the downfall of Peter Mandelson, the downfall of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. These are, people of the highest echelons of political and royal power in the UK being completely taken down. We're not seeing the same domino effect with names in America. Why do you think that is?
Because it's our culture of protecting predators and continuing to, basically prosecute victims. I see it in my own case right now that I turned over evidence to law enforcement and no one's been arrested, and the names of the victims, some of the victims were revealed by the judge in those cases. But you see this recycled abuse of these women who come forward. And it's just the way that I think culturally we've been for hundreds of years. This is what's okay in American society. And I appreciate it and I'm grateful for the bravery, for the courage, for the truth that the Epstein survivors are coming forward with. They're risking their lives. They're risking their mental health because this is deeply traumatic for them. One has already committed suicide. And for some of them who've been Jane Doe for years, to see their names accidentally revealed in the DOJ documents, I can't imagine how devastating it is for that woman today and her family, who may not know that she was a victim, but now they do because the DOJ revealed that information.
Nancy Mace, I really appreciate you coming back on Uncensored. Thank you very much. Well, let's hear now from my panel. Isaiah Martin is a Democrat congressional candidate in Texas who has just gone viral after taking on 20 Republicans in this week's Jubilee. Mike Nellis is host of Endless Urgency, the strategist behind White Dudes for Harris. And Clay Travis is founder of Outkick. And Tyrus is on his way and will be joining us very soon. Okay, just first of all, Clay Travis, let's just talk about this Epstein scandal. Because it is completely bizarre sitting here in London, watching people go down like dominoes. And these are not insignificant figures. You've got the former Prince Andrew in line to the throne of the UK, obviously. You've got Lord Mandelson, who was a UK ambassador to the United States. He's gone. They've both been completely torched as a consequence of what's emerged about them in these files. But we're not seeing that in America. Why are we not? And do you want us to?
Well, I think, first of all, there should be people bearing consequences who were involved in actually some sort of activity with girls alongside of Epstein. And I think you have seen a lot of Americans lose their jobs. I mean, the head of one of the biggest law firms in the United States lost his job. You've seen people in media lose jobs recently that they've gotten. But I think also people are looking at some of the details and saying there's a difference. For instance, Howard Lutnick's being attacked right now, and you can criticize him for continuing to interact with Jeffrey Epstein, certainly. But he went to Epstein Island with his wife and a bunch of kids on a cruise trip to the Caribbean. And so all connections are not the exact same. I think what you're actually seeing in the United States is there's being a lot of discernment as to what was going on. I'll also add in, there's so much volume here that I do think a lot of people are just frankly overwhelmed with the 3 million different documents that are out there and all the different names that are flooding the zone. I think there's some degree of people just being overwhelmed with the sheer amount of people that were involved here across all the landscape. And so, again, I think there's some discernment when it comes to actual interaction. Are these business partners? Are these people who were involved with women or not? Are these people that may have even gone to the island, as I said, in the case of Howard Lutnick, and done so with their wife and with their kids, which I think is quite a lot different than the crimes that Epstein was accused of committing.
Okay, Mike Nellis, I mean, notwithstanding, a lot of what Clay said there, I'm sure is right, but people want accountability. And as I said to Congresswoman Mace, the fact that there are going to be more than 3 million documents from the Epstein Files that apparently are not going to be made public strikes me as absolutely staggering. And of course, that's going to do nothing but inflame all the raging conspiracy theories.
I think that's absolutely right, is people should be incredibly angry that nobody is being prosecuted for this. And let's be clear about what's happening here. The Department of Justice under Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are covering this up. Let's not forget that in July, over the July 4th weekend, they told us that this investigation was over and that there was nothing there. How many times do we have to hear that Donald Trump isn't in the Epstein Files, then we find out he's in there a million times? How many times do we have to listen to guys like Howard Lutnick say, I met Jeffrey Epstein once, and then it turns out he was a creep, and I wasn't there? You keep unwinding this stuff, and you find that these guys have been lying for so long. So the reason there isn't accountability either criminally or just in polite society, like Nancy Mace talked about earlier, is because Donald Trump is at the heart of this because these guys are covering it up. Howard Lutnick says, I didn't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein. He only lived next door to the guy, started a business with the guy, and brought his kids, which to me is disgusting, on a trip to Epstein Island after it was already known that the guy was a registered sex offender. Donald Trump is out there saying, I didn't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein and what he was doing, except he was talking about it. He partied with the guy. He met his wife, his current wife, at an Epstein party. Not to mention the fact that he's mentioned the files over 1 million times. So it's embarrassing to me. And to your point, Piers, all over Europe, people are having their careers destroyed because of their relationship with a guy who is a registered sex offender who trafficked kids. And that's not happening in the United States. And it's embarrassing. And frankly, it's embarrassing when MAGA bootlickers come on and defend this stuff because it's an 80-20 issue to the vast majority of Americans who are pissed. Kids were abused here. We got to take this seriously.
We have, but Isaiah Martin, I mean,
Well, the government hasn't. You're taking it seriously, Piers, which I appreciate.
What crimes specifically should be charged?
Well,
And who?
at a bare minimum, we know that there were kids that were trafficked. How is it possible that Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person that's ever going to be prosecuted for that?
Well, because she trafficked. I mean, if you read the indictment,
She trafficked them by yourself? Is your position, wait, hold on, Clay. Is your position that Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked these kids by herself?
She trafficked them for Jeffrey Epstein. That is what the charges
Right, but by
show.
herself,
That's why
nobody
she
else
was
helped.
prosecuted and
There were
convicted.
1,000 little boys and 1,000 little girls that were trafficked on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein by Ghislaine Maxwell, but is she the only one who did it?
That is not accurate based on the evidence. I just asked a simple question. You want people prosecuted. Who should be prosecuted and what should they be charged with?
Yeah, I want the 6 co-conspirators to be prosecuted for trafficking little kids.
Okay,
and I
name
want the
them
rest of
and
these
name
people.
the
Hold on,
charges that you
hold on,
want
Clay.
brought.
I'm answering your question.
I'm a lawyer, so this matters to me. When you say people should be charged, and when you
human
say
trafficking is a crime, you might want to check your penal
individuals who are
code.
charged, who and with what crimes? Let me also ask you this, as we lead into that: why did Joe Biden not charge anybody? Why did Barack Obama not charge anybody? Do you think the only thing that Democrats and Republicans agree on is that Jeffrey Epstein should be protected and everybody else around him should be protected? Look, the reality here, in my opinion, is if you actually look at the evidence that came out, Trump in 2006 said, thank the Lord, basically, I'm paraphrasing, in the actual Epstein files in 2006, that you were able to charge this guy. We all knew that things were going on that were inappropriate. You can't go after Donald Trump on this at all. Do you really think that Joe Biden
actually,
and
hold on. Let's talk about that for a second.
Evidence that Trump committed crimes when he tried to imprison him for the rest of his life over bogus charges in New York City, when he tried to put him in prison, bankrupt him? You think he's set on Epstein?
Right.
This just doesn't add up. So again, I circle back to the basic question: who should be charged and what should they be charged with based on your reading of the evidence? Specifically, tell me.
So this is a clever trick that these MAGA influencers like to do, is that they want to blame this on Joe Biden.
How is it a clever trick?
Hey, Clay, let me finish my point. Hold on, and then you can tell me why I'm wrong. But let me finish my point.
I said
I answered your question already, Clay, but you keep interrupting me. All right, listen.
So
this is what they want to do.
Tell us what the charges should be.
This entire thing is a failure of multiple administrations. There are Democrats and Republicans in the file. And the bottom line here is that there's an Epstein class and its defenders, like Clay, and there's everybody else. And so right now, they're defending Donald Trump, who's been covering this up. There are 6 co-conspirators.
Clay, there are 6. Everybody should be charged with crimes.
No, that's not what I said, Clay. There are 6.
You can't even give me a name or a crime.
Do you realize how obtuse you sound at the idea that nobody else can be charged by this? There are 6 co-conspirators in the files that Congress has seen that are currently blocked off. You can't tell me that 1,000 little girls and boys were trafficked and nobody else.
And what the crimes
I don't know their names because they're concealing them in the files, Clay, because the Trump administration is covering this up.
Do you know what?
So you're telling me to tell you something that I don't know.
Time out. All right. Time out. You know, the bottom line, Clay, is this. The best way to work out who should be prosecuted and who should be charged is for every one of these files to be released unredacted, with the exception of the names of the victims. Hang on, with the exception of the names of the victims, right? So that everyone knows exactly who's been accused of what, and then everyone can determine who should potentially be prosecuted or not. Because they're going to keep back 3 million files, the suspicion will continue that this is a powerful
Here's what I would
cover-up.
say. Here's what I would say about that.
I've always been blunt about health. It's one thing you can't debate your way out of. Like all of you, I've had first-hand experience of vague doctor visits which leave you guessing. Sometimes you need a lot more reassurance, and that's why Superpower resonates with me. Superpower flips the script on preventative health. One simple lab test covers 60 labs, scanning over 100 biomarkers for heart, liver, thyroid, hormones, metabolism, vitamins. It spots inflammation deficiencies, even causes of fatigue. No waiting rooms, do it from your home. You get a tailored action plan in their app with a dedicated medical team guiding you. It's athlete-level insights at an accessible price, down from $499 to just $199. Superpower tracks your progress over time, building a lifetime picture. Head to superpower.com to learn more and lock in the special $199 price while it lasts. After you sign up, they'll ask how you heard about them, so please make sure to mention me and support this show. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower.
All of the women who receive payments and I believe they received about $120 million in payments from the Epstein estate after he died. All of them are free to go out and name exactly who they say assaulted them, who they say victimized them in any way. They have complete ability to do that. The so-called Epstein victims who have received over $100 million.
So-called Epstein victims. We should call that out for what that is. That's a bullshit.
No, it's not. They are saying that they are Epstein victims and they have been paid. They can come out and say, no one is stopping them. I would welcome them. I would encourage them. Come out and tell us.
Well, actually, quite a few. Hang on. Quite a few. Okay, but Clay, quite a few. Quite a few are beginning to do that. Quite a few are beginning to do that. So it's going to be interesting how many more follow that path. Isaiah, you've been waiting very patiently. What's your view of where we are with this scandal?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that this is a entire view of the Republican Party right here with Clay, the so-called Epstein victims. Look, ultimately, I think if the Republicans wanted to end this situation, they would call and join the millions of Americans that are saying that we want to see the unredacted Epstein files. 3 million files currently sit as we stand today that are redacted. And people want to see the truth. And the fact that you have MAGA running around carrying water for Trump, as Mike said, claiming that these victims are so-called victims or whatever it is, it's a shame to the American public. And it's why the Republican Party is losing trust all around this country. I think it's abundantly clear. It's why they're losing special elections everywhere we see, because of the fact that they are losing the trust of the American people. And I think that what Clay just said makes that abundantly clear.
I don't think that Republicans actually have any particular opinion. I'm sharing my opinion. I think actually the majority of people
so-called Epstein victims.
Fed up with the Epstein situation in general. My position is, if you actually look at the evidence, I do not believe that every Democrat in power and every Republican in power conspired to cover up a bevy of charges that would otherwise have been brought. And by the way, if you want to make it a Democrat,
what people are fed up with, they're fed up with the fact that people are going in this country and they're carrying water for pedophiles in America. That's what they're fed up with, Clay.
Are actually Democrat donors like Jeffrey Epstein. If you want to make it a Democrat-Republican issue, there are way more.
Clay, this is what's so insane about this situation. We have said from the very beginning that we support every single person that is inside of the Epstein files that has been assaulting children.
You know the truth.
We want to call them out. We want to see them prosecuted.
That's what we say. The truth is, the Biden administration didn't release these files. The Trump administration promised to and hasn't released all the files. So the American people and the watching world, because this affects many other countries too, are looking on going, who is actually going to honor the claim to be transparent? And I think until there is proper transparency on this, this is going to go on and on and on and on. And actually, someone at some stage has to go, you know what? We're going to put it all out there, because until that happens, the conspiracy theories will rage. I want to move on. So joining the panel, back for the first time on Uncensored in a while, but a very welcome return to the best-selling author, the Fox News superstar that is Tyrus. Tyrus, welcome back.
Hey, how you feeling, Piers? How you doing?
You know what? I know you're a fitness guy. You're my fitness guru in many ways. My new hip is beginning to kick in. I've been doing a few little gentle laps of my local high street. And yeah, things are looking better.
Pretty soon get you back in the gym, bro. Working on those 1-2s.
Yeah, I would love that. Let me start with you, Tyrus, about this whole Bad Bunny thing. So I had a great debate with Megyn Kelly yesterday. It's gone nuts viral. We've had nearly 40 million people watch the stuff on our various platforms.
Well, everything you do is viral, my brother. Everything you do.
Thank you, Tyrus. But her central argument was this wasn't a Super Bowl halftime show for Americans, that it was aimed specifically at the Spanish-speaking element of America, which is about, she said, 40 million. I think the latest figures are about 54 million Americans who have that as the first language. And it's really split the country, I guess, this debate. I want to play a quick clip. This is of Steven Crowder and Don Lemon giving the different reactions.
Proud to be an American. It was a total slap in the face to the dumbasses who were like, this is un-American and we need to have someone who speaks English and blah, 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 blah. It's ridiculous. Donald Trump and MAGA, you are out of touch with this country, like completely out of touch. And you know what? Good. Keep going. Yeah. Oh, you're right. You guys were right. You're right. It should have been, English. We should. And when they say English, you know what that means? That means white.
But we're not going to remain lone wolves and just go, I don't view race. I'm starting to more and more. Thanks, left. Appreciate it. Thanks for waking everybody up.
Now, my view, Tyrus, which I expressed yesterday, is I actually enjoyed the performance. It didn't bother me at all that he sang in Spanish, no more than it does when Pavarotti sings Nessun Dorma in Italian, right? And the fact that actually there are 54 million Americans who do have Spanish as their first language and millions more who speak it and understand it as well. What's the big deal? Why does this have to be a massive deal?
It's not. Let's stop it. When Macarena came out, nobody was asking for the English version. Listen, I don't care for Bad Bunny. I think his name is silly. I don't like his music. I don't think I've ever listened to any of his songs. He earned the right to perform his art at the Super Bowl, and I did what I do at every Super Bowl at halftime: reload the plate, make your bathroom break, check on the kids. Then when the halftime show's over, come back, sit my big behind down and watch it. I think this is the result of being, this is a first world problem. It doesn't matter. It wasn't a great performance. None of them halftime shows are. Honestly, the best ones are when they have a rock and roll band because it just sounds better. But in terms of performance and everyone's just, if you need to look for something to be outraged about, and this is what you're outraged about. This is what when you climbed in bed and went to put your little head on the pillow, you're like, I can't believe the NFL halftime show. You have a wonderful life. We are so great. We are so wonderful right now that we can complain about 20 minutes of a halftime show. It doesn't matter. Nobody really cares. And you had an alternative. And you know what? A lot of people switched and watched a little puppy Super Bowl. They do that too. We have remote controls in this country. So the fact that this is an uproar is pathetic, and this is just what the media does when we don't have a lot of stories going on that everyone wants to talk about.
I totally agree. Clay Travis, I mean, were you enraged that you had a guy from Puerto Rico who is the biggest downloaded guy in Spotify for the last few years, who's an absolute phenomenon, an American success story? Dad was a truck driver, mum was a teacher. He was a good, God-fearing kid who went, raised as a Catholic, very devout and so on, who works hard, is not embroiled in scandal, works his way to the top of his profession, and then gets the gig that his own talent and success commands, which is the biggest gig in music in America, which is the halftime show. He ticks every single box for me.
I think it was a really poor choice. And I think it was a really poor choice because Bad Bunny is a super left-wing activist. And the data reflects that I'm right, Piers. Just before we came on, or last night, but the data continues to come in, about 10 million people turned off their televisions for halftime, which is the biggest drop in the halftime audience that we have ever seen in the history of Super Bowl performances. And usually, I don't know how many people know this, usually Tyrus actually, I think, speaks for a lot of people because I typically am frustrated because I don't like Super Bowl parties, period. I watch every football game on the planet, and I can't focus on the game when I got tons of people who have no idea what's going on in the game. So that's my biggest general Super Bowl complaint is that people have no idea, suddenly show up and they're talking and they're yapping and, I can't tell what's going on with the game. So that's my biggest complaint. But when you go to halftime, usually, guys, the halftime is the most watched part of the Super Bowl. Usually the audience peaks at the halftime. People get in their cars, they start heading home, Super Bowl parties break down. This audience overwhelmingly rejected Bad Bunny on a level that's never occurred in the history of the Super Bowl. I think that's bad for the NFL. I think that's bad for the overall Super Bowl viewership. And I do think it's significant. When you have a cultural, iconic event that is a monoculture event that brings every American together, the biggest audience that we have of the year, and the vast majority of people cannot understand what he is singing, I do think that matters. I don't think you should have a singer in Spanish. And by the way, Piers,
But did you
I would
feel
say the same thing
but did you feel, Clay?
If Pavarotti, a voice
Clay,
of an angel, came out and was doing an opera performance at halftime of the Super Bowl, I would say that's not a good choice. That's not who we need.
Yeah,
there were
but
lots of
okay.
people they could have picked. I think it was a poor
Clay,
choice by the
Clay,
NFL, by Jason.
that's my point. With Pavarotti, Donald Trump used Nessun Dorma by Pavarotti at all of his campaign rallies in 2016. He's played it at the RNC, and I don't remember you, Clay Travis, expressing any outrage that these absolutely cultural, phenomenal moments in the history of the Republican movement.
Trump comes
they
out
had an
to
Italian
Greenwood
singing Italian
every single
opera.
time he comes out. If it's a medley, I would have Piers. I will go on the record. If the NFL ever tries to put Pavarotti on the stage, on the 50-yard line to sing for the Super Bowl, I will storm the field and get arrested to fight back against an non-English speaking performance at the Super Bowl, Piers.
Can we get a booker?
You can come help me out. Hopefully
only
that
if
will
Trump
be well
tells
then.
you to,
and we can do a big show the next Monday. I'll give you the exclusive.
If Trump goes
Piers,
on Truth
make
Social
that
and gives
happen.
you some
All right,
more
let me
people,
go.
maybe he'll do that.
Let me go to Isaiah here. Isaiah, I mean, I'm just not even sure Clay Travis means a word of what he's saying about this, right? I think people now, and I love Clay, to be clear, but I do think people rush now to take the party line on this stuff. What I did was I woke up in the UK, and obviously it was early morning when I woke up, it just happened. And I just watched it. I just immediately downloaded on Twitter or X. I said, right, halftime, full show. And I watched it from start to finish before I saw anyone's commentary about it. Just so I could think, I don't know much about Bad Bunny, other than he's hugely popular. What was it like? I thought it was an amazing show that he put on as a spectacle. The most theatrical thing I've seen in a halftime show ever. I don't think it was the best performance. I thought Michael Jackson, Prince, others have been amazing. But I enjoyed it. And I certainly just saw a guy who seemed to be, it seemed to me, to be preaching a message of love, not hate. He had an actual marriage take place in the middle of it, a legitimately lawful marriage. He talked about all of the Americas in a unifying way. I was really struggling to see how anyone could hate this. And then I turn on, fatal error, of course, I turn on X, tap in Bad Bunny, and all hell's breaking loose. And there are many on the conservative right absolutely losing their minds. And I'm like, why?
It's hilarious, Piers. I mean, I think what started all of that, you see Trump on Truth Social, he goes and he talks about how much he doesn't like it. And just like robots, all the Republicans start going out with their talking points. It's hilarious to me that they need their little safe space, right? Like, they're always so sensitive. Every time somebody that the vast majority of Americans enjoyed, they thought it was a good halftime show, they wanted to go and run to Turning Point to go create their little safe space. Ultimately, over 127 million Americans watched this halftime show. They enjoyed it. It was on social media everywhere. I know for me, I personally don't speak Spanish, but it was great. I had a great time. I was humming the songs on my TikTok live. I thought it was hilarious. So ultimately, I think the vast majority of people thought it was great. And this is just more conservative tears. It's just what they do.
Well, it's like, Mike Nellis, I was in Barbados, for example, after Christmas and over New Year. And, there was some people were singing in Bajan, right? But people were singing in Bajan, right? The Barbados language, in some of the bars and clubs. It was fantastic. I don't remember thinking, well, I don't understand it, therefore this is outraging me.
Yeah, I just think a lot of this is just so performative from the MAGA right because they need something to distract you from the state of the economy, the job market, the housing market, Epstein, Trump's corruption, all this other stuff. I mean, it's really silly to me. And like, Piers, you had me on your show not that long ago during all the is Sydney Sweeney a Nazi bullshit. And you asked me my take on it. And I'm going to give you the same take here. Can people stop being weird on the internet? Like, we don't need leftists that are policing everything. We don't need conservatives that are policing everything. And I agree with you, Piers. Like, Clay doesn't believe a single thing that he's saying. He just thinks it's good for engagement.
I 100%
you had Megyn
believe
Kelly on your show Monday.
Are you the guy
I don't think you care.
Exactly. Hey, look, I can speak for Clay. Clay believes exactly what he says.
Well, then that's even dumber somehow.
Honestly,
I was trying to think better of you that it was just a bit
and
you were doing
we need to
online
make this happen. Listen, I just don't care. But I think it's funny that you're saying he's performative while you're being performative. Fellas, we really don't care.
I'm not being performative.
No one here really cares about the Bad Bunny thing.
Performative?
I agree. The only reason we're talking about it, though, is because Clay spent all night bitching and moaning about it on the internet.
This is.
Hold on, I just want to come back to this too. Are you really
Why are you
the
on
guy
the internet?
who started
Go
White Dudes for
outside.
Harris?
Play on the grass.
Is this the guy who started White Dudes for Harris?
Date.
Is that the best you got, Clay? Is that the best you got?
I want to personally hold on.
Like on this show, you've questioned the validity of the Epstein survivors, and then you're talking about a halftime show.
I'm not sure anything better than White Dudes for Harris helped white dudes convince themselves that there were Trump. There were a lot of people who had no idea. Then they saw you, and they're like, "I don't."
Hey, White Dudes for Harris was a very good idea.
Man, his dream shake.
How dare you, Clay? How dare you, Clay?
Hold on,
White Men for Harris was an amazing idea and concept.
Just a second, Tyrus. I've always wanted to debate with the Funkasaurus. Okay, like I'm a huge fan of yours, so don't ruin that for me. Big fan.
Okay, let's move on to something else.
These aren't debatable topics.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
What's not debatable is the fact that conservatives went to cry in a safe space.
Like, who cares?
Yeah,
Clay didn't watch it. You watched it. You sang along.
But imagine being so offended by a halftime show.
None of us gave a damn.
You run to create your own safe space. That's hilarious.
You know what was interesting?
This is
what was interesting. Not everyone.
Not
everyone on the right actually. Well, not everyone on the right actually was outraged. Interestingly, given his other ranting,
I'm about as right as you get, and I gave a frog's fat ass. I didn't care. Good for Bunny. I didn't care. I didn't care.
Well, you were joined by
I'm as right as it gets.
You were joined by Nick Fuentes.
I just
Tyrus.
really want to see Clay. I really want to see Clay run. We need to get that opera singer out there just because I want to see Clay do it because he's a man of his word and he would do it.
I will get arrested. I'll come on. I'll come on with you, Piers. I'll come on with you, Tyrus. I might need help with the bail because depending on what the city is, they probably are going to throw the book at me.
We'll get a GoFundMe page or we'll get something.
No, I think the next time Donald Trump has Nessun Dorma at one of his rallies, I want to see you, Clay Travis, lead the campaign against this outrage against your sensibilities. But it was interesting because Nick Fuentes said this about it. Let's take a look.
If the white right, if the best we have to offer is the sad, dying gasp of white culture, it's like some white trash country hip hop artist from Detroit from the 90s. If that's the best we have to offer, people are going with liberal hegemony.
You know, the funny thing, Clay, is I watched the Kid Rock version with the others, and I enjoyed that too, by the way. But if Kid Rock had been the halftime show, would you have been as exercised about the fact that he's obviously a very, very vocal right-wing activist? In other words, if your objection to Bad Bunny was that he's a left-wing activist politically, would you have applied the same criticism of Kid Rock, albeit you agree with him?
I agree with Kid Rock. I think he's a great guy. Piers, you're missing the point. The NFL would never allow Kid Rock.
Yeah, but if he did do it, would you complain?
Because he is now an outspoken Trump supporter. If Kid Rock were allowed to perform at the Super Bowl, all these guys to my left who are talking about, we don't care about who performs at the Super Bowl, they would lose their mind. Pierce, a few years ago.
But would you, Clay?
That isn't true, though. Like, if first of all, they're not going to book Kid Rock because he hasn't been relevant in 20 years.
Hold on. There's a direct analogy.
Hold on, Clay. If they book Jelly Roll next year and a bunch of my people started boycotting it, I tell them they were being losers.
Well, don't talk over each other.
Kid Rock was selected to perform at halftime, or whatever you call it, of the NHL All-Star Game, and there was a mass uproar on the left. Hockey, they said, "Oh my goodness, how dare the NHL connect itself to Kid Rock?" There was a huge protest.
Was there a safe space USA halftime show for the NHL?
Would never allow him to perform. I would. I love Kid Rock. I've been to Kid Rock concerts. I think it would have been a better show.
Let me ask Tyrus. Okay,
let me ask Tyrus.
Tyrus, Tyrus, here's my point about all this. I agree with you, Tyrus, that actually the whole thing's a sort of, like a hot air. But it does seem to get everyone going.
Yes.
But secondly, there's got to be an intellectual honesty about these things. That's what I always try and apply to myself when I look at these things. It's like, if your view is that you don't think anyone who's a political activist should be allowed to perform the halftime show. It's got to apply to your own side as well as the others, right? We saw all this hypocrisy over Jimmy Kimmel with that saga. And we saw some on the right, like Ted Cruz, coming out and being intellectually honest about free speech. And we saw others who weren't. Yeah, and you, Clay, yeah. So my point, Tyrus, is, I don't mind people being politically partisan, but you have to be intellectually consistent. Otherwise, I can't take it seriously.
No. Well, if Piers, that is a wonderful model. And if we were intellectually consistent across the board on both sides, we wouldn't be doing dumb shit like this. So you're 1,000% right. And it shouldn't matter. It's a halftime show. Let him, Bad Bunny, sing it. And if at the end he wants to say his thing, usually most of the time, when celebrities make political statements to the masses, it doesn't play out well. So who cares? The fact that this is what irritates me beyond measure. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Kid Rock, the dude's, his music still holds up today. He could be a halftime show anywhere in the country. He was. They had 2 choices. And they had, don't forget, they had little puppy choices. And they had other channels. That, like, what do we have, 1,100 channels now with DirecTV or whatever it is? So there was options for everyone. The fact that every side doesn't police itself is a problem. And they love to point out when the other side's doing something. It's like watching your kids argue over a toy. Basically, and this week the toy is the Super Bowl. Who was more virtuous? Who was more there? Nobody was. The fact that we could all sit on our asses and watch a Super Bowl and enjoy life is a good thing. And the fact that we're complaining about it and arguing about it doesn't matter. Bad Bunny, I haven't listened to one of his songs. I have absolutely no use for him in terms of entertainment. I didn't watch the halftime show, but I didn't watch last year's either, or the year before that. The only one I think I watched was Aerosmith, and that's when I was Snoop's bodyguard and I was physically in the arena. So again, move on from it. You want to have a fun debate, but when you start arguing and saying stuff, you want a piece of me, like that is laughable. All these tough keyboard trolls coming on TV talking about they ready to fight for Bad Bunny, or fight to take him down. Relax, fellas. Relax.
Hold on. I just want to say,
other thing,
because can I jump in?
Yeah.
For a second? Because I'm not sitting here defending Bad Bunny. I thought the performance was fine, but it's not even close to my favorite Super Bowl halftime show. But I'm just please begging people, stop making everything political. Like, if they make Jelly Roll the headliner next year and my people start bitching about it, I'm going to tell them to shut up too. So it's a lot of performance. And you played that clip of Megyn Kelly earlier, and she's just, and Tyrus knows a lot about this. It's just WWE, right? They're just playing a character. They're playing it up when they can. And speaking of WWE, by the way, if you want to talk about Bad Bunny, headlined a pay-per-view for WWE in Puerto Rico, and it was one of the best things that I've seen as a pro wrestling fan. So the guy's got talent. I just don't understand anybody caring this much about the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, people need to grow up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's change to something else, which is sort of similar territory for me in terms of the consistency point. Clay Travis, and it was the kind of farce over the Obama monkey meme fiasco, which erupted a few days ago. And the reason I think it's similar territory is the easiest thing the White House could have done, the intellectually honest thing, I think we all know this, is they could have just said, you know what, the president, or he could have said it, I didn't get to the end of the thing, I reposted it, and I didn't realize there was this little meme thing at the end, and if I'd known that, I wouldn't have posted it, and I'm sorry. Donald Trump can't do that. I've been friends of his for 20 years. Spoke to him last week. We had a great conversation. He does not have a valve that allows him to admit he's got something wrong or to apologize. Wouldn't it just be easy if they had, rather than initially try and give some laborious explanation, then throw a staffer under the bus as if there's some staffer at midnight who's posting stuff under Donald Trump's name like this, when I think we all know it was him. Why doesn't he just say, I didn't get to the end, sorry. The whole thing then just diffuses.
I think he eventually got there. And I mean, big picture, this is why whatever you think about me, everything from my Twitter account is me. I will not let anybody else post. If I'm going to get ripped for something, it's going to be something that I did. I think that is, to me, the story. It's a mess. I don't know how many people have access to President Trump's social media accounts, but when you're the leader of the free world, you need to have fail-safe, and you need to have the ability to make sure that you're not posting things like this, which are huge distractions. Now, to be fair, if you watch the full meme, it's a sort of ridiculous, absurd, Lion King flavored meme where they have people of all different animals with different facial heads on them. but it's a complete unforced error. Trump acknowledged eventually that they screwed up and should not have posted it. And to me, if I were in charge of the White House social media accounts, which clearly I'm not, I would want to further curtail and restrict what we're posting until enough people have actually viewed the entirety of the videos that we're posting. So I think, it's a failure that should be addressed going forward. That's my take. I think that's eventually where they ended up. But it took several hours for them to acknowledge that this was a screw up and it shouldn't have been posted as it was.
Tyrus, should Donald Trump just be more willing to apologize when he gets stuff wrong? I'll give you another example. When he attacked NATO forces' contribution in Afghanistan, I had a personal interest in that. My brother, who was a former British Army colonel, who came on the show to talk about it, actually, he was so angry about it. But he did 2-3 tours of Afghanistan. And, he knows many people who were absolutely fighting on the front line. In effect, the whole country was a front line because the Taliban were fighting everywhere. And it was incredibly insulting and hurtful what Trump said. He then did a big kind of clarification saying how great the British forces were in particular, blah, 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 blah. But he couldn't bring himself to apologize. And I just think sometimes with Donald Trump, if he just had that ability when he got something wrong, it would go a long way to calming some of the Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, I think, and I tend to try to answer things and put myself in that position. And I think the reason why you don't see things like that from him is because of the environment that he's in. He apologized, and it's not just for face value. It's turned into something else, connected to something else. I mean, he's dealing with a legacy media that refers to him as Hitler. Every time he does something, it doesn't matter what it is, it's wrong. He cures cancer. He should have cured polio. Like, it doesn't matter. So I think and his mindset is completely unapologetic. I think behind the scenes, I think if he personally insulted somebody and they were personally affected by it, President Trump would be a stand-up guy and contact them without the cameras. I know that for a fact has happened on several occasions. But again, me personally, no, I'm not apologizing, because at this point, whatever he says, they're going to take out of context anyway. So you might as well have some fun with it. Was the meme dumb? Sure, why not? But half the shit that they say about him is dumb and stupid. And we're going to have two guys that are going to list a million things and call him all these other things. And every time he does something, it's times 40. And he spends his whole day sitting around reading Hitler's playbook on how to go after Americans that don't look like him. Like, it's pathetic. So I wouldn't apologize either at this point in my career. I just do what I do. And if you don't like it, tough. It doesn't matter if you're not going to accept it anyways. So what's the point?
You see, that's an interesting point, Mike Nellis. I suspect Tyrus is right, as he often is that if Trump did apologize, that would just be used as a weapon against him anyway. And, he's always been the same when it comes to this kind of thing. And the reality is nobody on the left ever apologizes for calling him Hitler or a Nazi or any of these things. They think that's perfectly okay. But when you have something that was clearly inadvertent, I don't honestly think anybody thinks Donald Trump saw that tiny little bit of that meme at the end of what was otherwise a Biden bashing 60-second clip that he reposted about other stuff. I don't think he got to the end and saw that. I'm pretty sure, right? So given that none of us really think he did, and therefore wasn't being deliberately racist, why should he apologize given nobody ever says sorry for calling him Hitler?
Well, let's be clear. If Donald Trump ever apologized for anything, I would fall to my knees because I would have assumed that God has intervened in his presidency finally. But look, let's also be clear about the video that he posted, because it isn't just like a Biden bashing video. It was 60 seconds of talking about how the 2020 election was stolen from him. It was a bullshit conspiracy theory video, and then whoever edited together threw the racist thing at the end. Maybe he didn't get to the end of it or not. I have no idea. That's between him and God. But what I do know is they spent a whole day lying about it. Okay, it was just a silly meme. The left needs to stop caring about things like this. Oh, actually, it was really offensive. We're taking it down, and a staffer did it. And then later that day, Trump was like, no, I didn't make a mistake. I saw it, and I posted it, and I was fine with it. I don't even know why we took it down. And to me, it's so emblematic of everything that happens in this administration. They lie about this. They lie about the state of the economy. They lie about the Epstein Files. They lie about his corruption. They lie about ICE. I mean, for God's sakes, we're a couple weeks removed from the murder of Alex Preddy on the streets of an American city, and this administration's not taking it seriously. They're attacking him as a domestic terrorist and claiming that he was an assassin. So they lie about everything. So it's not so much that I care about this meme. Like, it's a dumb, stupid thing. To me, it is offensive, but I don't care about it. It's just, this is Every single thing that happens in the Trump administration, they lie. They have zero credibility on anything. And God, to Tyrus's point, if Donald Trump did cure cancer, I would also fall to my knees and celebrate him for that. But I got to wait for him to solve any problem in America, let alone that.
Okay, Isaiah?
You know, the way I saw it, Trump has always had a sub-chimp level IQ. So to me, it was just him finding a new way to cope with it. To be honest with you, I think every single person in this country can see that if he couldn't apologize for something like this, he can't apologize for anything. And I think it's just a whole story that's just completely indicative of his entire White House, everything that we've seen, the scandals left and right, the economy in tatters. It's just really just him just being himself.
Let's end by talking about this appalling story about Savannah Guthrie and her mother, which has sent a real shudder through, I think, a lot of spines, not least people who are on television, like we all are in some capacity, and about our families and about what this may mean for security and all the rest of it. I mean, who knows what has really happened here? But Tyrus, what do you make of this story? It's so strange in so many ways. And then we saw this horrific video coming out of this masked guy at the door, which clearly seems to confirm that she was abducted. But we don't know what the hell has happened to Nancy Guthrie. But what do you make of it?
I think we've had so many experts give so many opinions. When I first saw the thing, I thought those eyes looked like a woman. It's just one of those things where it's a tragedy. And I'm just kind of watching to see how it plays out. Every time I see something, I think something. Kidnapping just seems like such a complicated thing to attempt, given today's technology and the ability to track things. Like I'm always wondering, like, how are you going to even get the money out of the Bitcoin once you get it in there? The addresses and all that other kind of stuff. But overall, man, it's terrible. I guess the one nice thing is that everyone is in agreement over this. You don't hear anyone arguing over her voting habits. Everyone generally is concerned and we all want a happy ending. Unfortunately, I think life oftentimes doesn't give us that, what we hope for. But, I just wait to see how it plays out. But I think they're getting close. I think they'll probably have some answer for us soon. I don't think once they got that video stuff, I think it's only a matter of time before they catch the people involved for this.
Yeah. Clay, I actually thought the president, via his press secretary, made a very good statement about this. And clearly he called Savannah Guthrie, who probably is not a big Trump fan. He did the right thing on this. It was quite presidential, I think, the way he's responded to it. And it has gripped not just the country, it's gripped the world. I've had family members of mine who've never heard of Savannah Guthrie, but they kind of, it completely, enthralled with the kind of drama of what is happening here. Because at the end of it, you're just thinking about your own parents, your own mother, if your mother's still alive, and what this means and how appalling it must be for them. What's your view of it?
Look, when kids around my age, our generation, were growing up with America's Most Wanted, one of the things we were always taught, lectured by parents, grandparents, there was this idea that young kids were going to be kidnapped. And I remember, having that fear when you would go to a mall or you would go to a public location. There was this idea that people were preying on innocent kids and you might be kidnapped, never heard from again. Fortunately, in the United States, we just don't have that many kidnappings, and we almost never have kidnappings for ransoms of kids, of adults, of grandmothers like Nancy Guthrie. And so I think the reason why it struck so many people is it's a true mystery as to what the motivations of these individuals are and who they are. But fortunately, we just don't have this happen. Somebody's mom, somebody's grandma getting kidnapped like this. I think it does evoke a reaction across the entire nation where everybody sits back and says, what would I do if this happened to my own mom? What would we do if this happened to grandma? And as Tyrus said, I hope we are going to end up with a happy ending. But the longer this goes on, the more problematic and troubling I think that becomes, given her age and also just the danger, obviously, incumbent on any kind of kidnapping like this. So I understand why it's gripped everybody in the nation as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, it's, the poor woman has medication which apparently would have run out after several days. It's been 10 days now. Everyone is following this. and it may well end in a tragic ending. You know, the longer it goes on, the more likely, sadly, that is probably going to be the case. But what has this story done to you? I mean, what have you been feeling as you've been following it?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's just scary. Like, I don't know how else to describe that. I mean, I don't know Savannah Guthrie, but I think I can put myself in that shoes like Clay just talked about. So it's, I mean, for everybody here, we've all faced death threats at some point. I mean, I had some prominent conservative influencer threatened me and my son. It was Laura Loomer, who's an advisor to President Trump. Like, she threatened my son in a private DM, and I had the cops at my house a couple months ago, just making sure everything was okay. Had to redo my security, had to pay to have my family members' information removed from the internet, so you can't find out where my mom lives. Like, it's just, it's a scary thing. And like, I hope that the FBI finds her. And I'm worried like you are. Every day that this goes, it just gets less likely that this is going to end in a positive way, and it's just terrifying.
Isaiah?
Yeah, I think that we all see ourselves in Nancy Guthrie's story. We all think about our own parents. We all think about our relatives in our lives. And I think what's making this really take off across America is that it could happen to any single one of us. And so the longer this goes on, I think, as everyone here has said, that the worse it can possibly be. But we're all just, I think, in America praying for somewhat of some good news to come out of the situation, because it's really horrific, no matter who you are in America.
You know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Super Bowl is supposed to be the big unifying event for Americans. And yet I would argue this horrific story has been much more unifying in the sense that I don't see anyone trying to score political points. They could, you know, people could. I just haven't seen it.
Well, Pierce, because it's real.
Super Bowl's become,
Pierce, it's a real thing, Pierce. This is a real thing. This isn't
right.
Objective or virtuous or something you can say whatever you want without any consequences, or like, this is a real thing. This is no one's caring. It's not going to be her ability to be conservative or to be a Democrat that's going to get out of this situation. Like, this is a real life situation. And I'm glad to see that the general American groups and people who are responding are acting like concerned citizens. And I think that's refreshing. Yeah. So sometimes it takes a tragedy to bring people together and focus on what's really important in life.
I would add too, like, to me, it's a lot like what happened to Charlie Kirk, his assassination. Like, it's just so horrific that the normal human reaction to it should be, oh my God. Like, in the moment, it was like, I hope he survived, but like thinking about his wife and his kids and just being a person for once. That's all that it is.
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing about the Charlie Kirk killing was, unfortunately, that was not met with a unified response.
Oh.
In fact,
a lot of people acted like assholes after that.
Yeah, there were people on the left who just behaved disgustingly, absolutely disgustingly. And I was
there were people on the right too, but it was wrong the way a lot of people acted.
Yeah, but I was pleased to see. I was pleased to see. I was pleased to see some. Look, let's not get political about it. I was just pleased to see some people on the left call out that bullshit. Because to see doctors and
it was nice for a second, wasn't it? We were all agreeing, Pierce. It was nice for a second, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we're still agreeing now.
Uniformly,
we kind of are, but with Charlie Kirk's death did become very political very quickly.
We did it for 5 seconds, America.
I was going to end this on a good line. I was going to end this on a good line.
You know what?
What'd you say to me? You left wing.
Let Clay end the show.
Come at me, bro.
Clay close us out with a bit of unity, for God's sake.
I'll take us home, Piers. Uniformly with what we do, unfortunately, we can all look at what happened to Nancy Guthrie's mom and think there's somebody crazy enough that might be willing to do that to one of our families. And I think that's why it strikes home so much across the entire spectrum, because who knows who it might be. Utterly, I think Americans of all stripes condemn this kind of violence. There you go, Piers. There's a positive way to end it.
You know what? I think that's very well said, and we're going to leave it on that moment of unity. Guys, thank you all very much indeed. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Piers.
See you guys.
Piers.
Glad to see you back. Feeling good, Piers.
Tyrus, brilliant to have you on Uncensored. It's been way too long. I love having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, man.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, We will continue our mission to inform, irritate, and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.